been a fool. Said he's sorry. I lift my keys, put on a smile so they don't see. Kids in the backseat singing to the radio.
Hey, welcome.
Hello.
So how was your week there, Sugar?
Whew. Well, every week has a new adventure. That's for sure. I will say this time, nothing fell in the trash can. I didn't have my clothes on backwards, so that's a plus. But
Did you stay in your clothes? I mean, that didn't sound good.
I did.
I mean,
I did for the most part. I had a few blunders, but that's what happens when you're a woman. Things just don't always go as planned.
I don't think it's a sexist thing. I think it's an everybody thing because I have the same problems.
Right? Sometimes you just wonder. But no, it was a really good week. I had a really great experience actually this time. I started my lovely new job this week, so that's been a lot of fun. And what's really neat is that I love people watching. I love paying attention to people. And
sound like my mom.
I'm a people watcher. I love just staring at people. Like if I could go be a fly on the wall at Walmart, like for the people of Walmart, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Like just to be able to say I was there.
You might be sorry if you got your wish on that one. Like,
probably.
Oh, that doesn't go with that.
Or she's missing her pants, or what happened to? Yeah, I know. There's some interesting walks of life in this world, isn't there?
Especially at Walmart.
Oh my goodness. But I was thinking today, like we're going through a lot of chaos in our world right now, right? There's a lot of weird shit going on. Let's just be real. And I think a lot of people are starting to lose hope in a lot of different ways, and so today at work, I really just took a moment and I paused and I saw some really cool things. I just thought I'd share with you real quick that just kind of hope for us as humans, right? Humanity as people, living, breathing, heart and soul, right? Like I saw a little old lady walk in today with her husband, and they're probably in their 80s. And he was struggling to walk a little bit, and he was struggling to open the door. And so he was kind of leaning on her. He had his arm in her arm, and she was guiding him in the door and everything. And she sat him down in the chair, and she was talking to the stylist about, what she would like to have him, hairstyle wise and things like that to look like. And she said, I want my husband back that I had before. And I just thought it was just the sweetest thing. She was there. She was taking care of him. She was showing him love. And you don't see that much these days anymore. So much people have lost that love. And so I just thought it was a really neat thing. And then there was another little girl there today that she had been growing her hair for a year and a half. And she had all her hair cut today, and she donated it all to Locks of Love, which, it just goes to show that there's still loving, kind people in this world. There was a lady that came in today that she asked to have all her hair removed because she had been going through chemotherapy, and what a rough time to be. And she came in by herself, and just the amount of like support and love that circled her around the people that were at the shop was it was a beautiful thing that people still care, and there is still love out there. And the light is still here. The light is still very much here, even in this crazy dark world that we're in. So I thought I'd just share that today. Don't lose hope.
And so there's a couple podcasts that I listen to, and I'm not going to say a huge fan, but I do like the way his podcast is. And that's the, what's his name? Sean Ryan podcast. Mm-hmm. And normally he's talking about PTSD related type stuff, veterans that have gone through some things. But I think he's going down that path now where he just feels like it's hopeless, because
Mm.
he has gotten really big into not politics, but trying to make people's eyes open to the bad decisions that the government's making. And today he had a guy on his show that um, was missing one arm and missing one leg, and he was at the gate when those 13 soldiers got killed from the bomber as they were trying to pull out from Afghanistan. And I was listening to this because there was a lot of story that he had to say that was not put on the news or anything, and some of it I don't think should be, but
Right.
man, you listen to that story and it's easy to lose hope, you know, and I had to stop for a minute and just, remember to myself that, hey, this ain't, there's bad places and there's bad people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody around you
Yes.
is bad and all is lost.
Yes. Absolutely.
Sometimes you got to take that step back and ask yourself, is the world as bad off as people want me to think it is? And why do they want me to think that? Because
Yeah.
it's all about the money, and if you start looking at things in that way, you would realize that the world hasn't changed. It's the people that you're putting around you that has changed. That's, just kind of the way I have started looking at things.
Yeah.
I use my Facebook. I love Facebook now. I used to be that guy that every time I seen it, it just pissed me off, and I was mad at the wrong person. I should have been mad at myself for searching for that shit.
Mm.
If you stop searching for it, it will stop surrounding you, and that's the
Yep.
same in life.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
put the right people around you, and you will have a different attitude about the world.
Absolutely.
If you put a bunch of negative around you, that's the outlook you're going to have. What you put in
Yes.
is what you're going to put out.
Absolutely. And your environment is so important, when it comes to that, when it comes to whether, you're in a point in your life where you're trying to change your life, or you're trying to get clean, or you're trying to get sober, or you're trying to make different choices in your life, or you're just ready, to not do things the way you've done before. When you have people in your life with your environment, it is so important that those people are supportive and understanding and loving, no matter what. If you have people in your life that are saying, you'll never get through this, this is just how it is, we going down in a ball of flames, then that's what you're going to believe. You're going to believe we're going down in a ball of flames. You're going to believe you can never change. You're going to believe you can never heal. You can never fix yourself. You can never take the mask off, right? Because when you think about it, when people are telling you you can't, it's a bigger fight to keep pushing forward to say, yeah, I can. And having the right people in your corner is so important for that reason.
It's funny, and I often have thought about this, and I'm sure there's been studies out there, and I'm sure there's doctors that can explain it, but let's take 9/11 for an example, right? New York City is known for that tough attitude. Nobody gives a shit, I mean, you heard it all the time about, people getting robbed and raped in alleyways and screaming for help, and people just walking by and minding their own damn business, And then after 9/11, I didn't think it was even possible for a city that large to come together the way it did, And now 20 years later, look at it now.
Yeah.
It's all tore apart again. And the Joe Rogan show, he talks about this a lot, kind of in passing with guests, but he always says that people are tribal people, but we are not designed to live like Los Angeles, New York City, in these massive groups of people. And to me, that does make sense, because you lose control of your environment at that point.
Yeah.
You're going to encounter so many different things and so many different people that it's hard to control what's going in and what's coming out.
Absolutely.
You shrink that down and you keep quality around you, and you now control that environment, and the chaos and the confusion all kind of goes away.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing that I always say is together we are one. There is a collective group of us around the states, around the world that are getting together and are standing up and are fighting and are saying, hey, this isn't the way things need to be. You don't have to live your life this way. You don't have to live in pain. You don't have to live suffering silently. You don't have to do these things. And we're that group that's coming together, right? That's standing up, that's being a light in the dark and saying, listen, we can do this differently. We can make changes here. We can find ways to heal. We can find ways to move forward. We can find ways to change our world and bring love back into humanity, bring hope back. When exactly what you said about 9/11, there was so much just horrific tragedy that happened there that it brought a nation together. At one point there were people
Why does
that
it
came
take
in
that?
from all
But why does it take that for that to happen? That's
you know
the,
I wish I knew the answer to that. I wish I did, and I wish it didn't have to. I wish it didn't have to take tragedy to bring unity. I really, really do. And that's with everything that we do, with our 22 veterans a day that take their lives.
yeah.
So many people have lost the battle and given in and taken their lives, and it took finally somebody to stand up to say, no more, no more. We need to make a change. We need to be the one match to fuel a fire that's going to change the world, right? And it took tragedy to make that happen, for someone to open their eyes to go, we got to change this. This isn't okay. One is too many.
Yeah.
And I wish it didn't have to take tragedy in order to bring unity. I wish it didn't. And I'm hoping now, with the more of us that are standing up and the more of us that are shedding light and the more of us that are saying, there's another way, we can work through this. You can change your mindset. You can heal. You can grow. You can strengthen. You can find beauty in the absolute pain that you've gone through. Like, I'm hoping and praying that there will be a day where so many people are standing up for the same thing and going to the ones that are feeling like they don't have anybody, or feeling like they can't remove their mask, or feeling like they're just not good enough, or they're not worth it, or they matter. And those people can stop that person from making a tragic decision. If enough of us stand up, we could change the world. We could make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. And it's that trickle effect. Um,
It's
one
like a
guy,
pyramid.
yep, it is. It's, one person impacts one other person's life, and now two people have been impacted. Now those two go out, and each ones that they impact spreads, and I think it's important to realize that the world didn't change for the worst. The world changed in a way that it changed faster than the way humans can change. So we drifted apart in all this chaos. The internet, the internet alone.
I'll agree with
You
that.
know, you know.
Yeah.
If you look at, I can remember, how you would have to play fantasy sports, just little stuff. You bought a magazine at the beginning of the season, and that's what you used all year long. There wasn't no internet where I could look up stats right on the fly. I didn't get the stuff sent straight to my phone. Your news was 24 hours old. What you learned today happened yesterday. And so I think the world, especially the United States, we got caught up in advancing, and we kind of left each other behind. Because I know when I grew up as a kid, I could tell you all the neighbors' names.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm in a duplex and I don't have a clue what the guy's
You don't
connected.
know. You don't know one person.
Nope.
Yeah, I feel
You
you.
know?
I'm the same way.
And so there's unhealthy things that are happening too that I still utilize. You know, I am a big fan of the one thing that came out of COVID that I absolutely love: contactless delivery. I love it. We can get all the business out of the way and I don't have to talk to you.
Yeah.
Leave it at the
Hey.
door. Don't even ring the doorbell.
You know,
It never happened as a kid. You know?
no. Oh, I sanitized my bananas at one point in time during COVID. I just like to announce that. I feel so stupid. Like back in the day when we didn't know what all this was, and now we're realizing what all this is.
Yeah.
I sanitized my bananas. I let my groceries sit outside for 3 hours before I brought them inside to make sure that they were safe, COVID free, and then I sanitized all of them. I just had to put that little tidbit in there. I felt stupid. After about a month, I was like, yeah, screw this shit. I ain't doing it.
Yeah.
Instead, I played Mad Libs with wine on Facebook and I sang. That was a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think things like this, you know, you think about, you know, the advancement is not a negative. You know, me and you have never met person to person, but
True.
we're still impacting each other's lives.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm a firm believer that if once we figure out the correct way to utilize some of this technology, it's going to go back to the way it used to be.
Yeah,
We
oh,
may
absolutely.
communicate differently, but we're going to start caring about each other versus just letting people starve, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's coming. It's coming sooner than you think. I mean, I'm
I
telling you,
agree.
like so many of us are standing right now and we're light workers. I mean, that's just really what it is. We're here to shed light, to bring hope and, you know, show the world that, you know, love isn't dead and people caring about people is not gone. And that
Brian,
they're
that's my
truly
favorite saying right there. Teamwork makes
teamwork
the
makes
dream
the
work.
dream work. Yeah,
Yep,
that's right.
absolutely. I
That's
love
right,
that saying.
1,000%. Yeah,
Yep.
it's so true. It's so true. You know, we are becoming the fire. Somebody lit the match, and that match has trickled and trickled and trickled and trickled. And now
Yeah.
we are becoming the fire that is going to set ablaze the world to make changes. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
One
I
person
don't,
at a time.
you know, and to go back to our last show, right? The last show, for the people that didn't watch it, um, shame on you, by the way. Um, the show was about wearing your mask, you know, and this week it's about taking that mask off and
Mhm.
seeing what's really out there versus what is told to be out there. And that's one thing that I think veterans have a problem with, because you're behind that mask because you don't trust anybody. And how do you tell somebody it's okay to take your mask off? Everybody's been lying to you,
Right.
you know? And their thought is, well, that's why I'm behind this damn mask, because everybody's lying to me. I don't trust any of y'all.
Right.
And to get somebody out of that comfort zone and bring them into what we just described as chaos that's going on around everybody, it's
Mhm.
tough, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that is everybody tips their toes in a different way. Some jump in, some touch and back up, touch and back up until they
Mhm.
finally get through it. And
Yeah.
it just takes somebody to understand what they're going through, you know, and be a part of that healing,
Mhm.
and and let them work themselves into it.
I agree. I agree 1,000%. And you know, it's hard. It's it's a scary thing, right? When you're a certain way for so long,
Yeah.
it's become part of you. You've adapted to that lifestyle, and that's your mentality. Every morning you're gonna get on, you're gonna put that mask on before you walk out that door.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have just seen over time, over interviews with other veterans, and over interviews with other men and things like that in general, is that the stigma that it's not okay to be not okay has been there since you've been young.
Yeah.
A lot of men that are veterans, and women too, people that are veterans in general, even from a young age, you went through something. You went through some sort of trauma in your life. You went through, either growing up, having to be tough, having to suck in your emotions, having to not be able to discuss what's going on in your life.
Mhm.
Maybe you were verbally abused, mentally abused, physically abused, sexually abused, whatever it might be. There's something from that childhood that people take with them. And I always say that it kind of starts off like in your heart. When you're born with a pure heart, right? You're born
Yep.
with like no worries, no concern. Your love, and all you can think of is you want to eat, and you want to go to the bathroom, and you want to be loved, right? You
Yep.
want to be held and nurtured. And then as you grow older, you start to build your heart and your soul, right? And you start to build these little knots. And are they going to be knots of like love and compassion and kindness, and you're going to get to express your emotions, and you're going to get to talk about the way you feel, and you're going to grow up in a loving environment, and a kind home, and drug-free environment, alcohol-free environment, and move forward with your life on a positive note? Or are you somewhere where maybe your parent was an alcoholic, or your parent was a drug addict, or your parent was, or grandparent, or whoever raised you, whoever was significant in your life, verbally or mentally abused you, or whatever it might be, right? So then those little knots in your heart, they start knotting, and they start knotting, and then next thing you know, there's like a little ball being formed, like a whole knot around your heart. And as you get older, it hardens just a little bit more, and you get older and it hardens just a little bit more, and you get to the point where it's so knotted up, you don't even know where to begin to start unraveling and then loosening those knots. And then you sign yourself into the military,
Yep.
and you go into the military, and you go through basic or boot camp, or whatever branch you end up going into, and you go through the different training exercises, and the different things that they put you through, the different, ways that they teach you how to control yourself, how to act, what to do, what not to do. They completely strip you down. They strip you down already from the things that from your childhood are still stuffed there. They didn't go anywhere. They're still there. But now on top of that, you're stripped down, told no feelings, no actions, no thoughts. You do what I do. You do what I tell you to do, and you do it when I tell you to do it. And they get you ready for war, right? They get you ready for a combat zone situation. And then you go into that situation. Let's say you see some sort of, trauma, you see, whatever it might be. We don't need to get into the full detail, but you take trauma from that, right? And
Mhm.
now, on top of being stripped down, on top of going through the pain and the things you went through in your childhood, now you've got this. And now it's getting embedded in there along with everything else. So now that knot is just completely huge and tied together, and in your mind there's no hope, because you've been talked down since you were a kid. You've been told to suck it up. You've been told dust it off. You've been told, maybe you're not good enough, or, who are you, or whatever, whatever it might be. And now on top of that, you have trauma to deal with. And you have to now accept the fact that these certain things happened in your life. Like, let's say maybe there was a time where, one of your brothers or your sisters was out there, and you weren't there in time, right? And so now you're dealing with a loss, and you're dealing with guilt trauma, and you're dealing with pain trauma, and you're dealing with all these types of trauma that on top of it, you were told you're not good enough as a kid, right? So
Right.
now you're taking the I'm not good enough, and you're taking, I just watched, my brother or my sister lose their life, or I wasn't there in time, or it was my fault. And now you're taking that and you're putting it into a basket and weighing yourself down. And that's when the mask starts forming. After going through pain and trauma like that, and having your whole life, built up from where it was when you're younger to where it is you're at now, it I have never served. I have never been in the military myself. Like I told you, I was an Army wife for a long time, family readiness leader for the Guard, but I have never served. So if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just from the outside looking in is what I have seen. That's the pain that I have seen. That's the pain that I have heard. That's the pain and the experiences that I have heard from others, and being on the outside looking in, have seen myself. And how do you take off a mask after all of that?
So there's a study out there, and I listened. I know it's a broken record. I listen to podcasts like all the time, but it was kind of interesting. They were talking about how you're born with trauma, right? Not so much that something happened to you, but the trauma from your ancestors, your mom and dad's trauma, and so on and so on and so on, is embedded in your DNA. And you think about that. Let's say that theory is true, because it does kind of make sense when you ask yourself, why can John Doe handle trauma this way, but somebody that had similar backgrounds and lifestyles handles trauma a completely different way?
Yeah.
As a soldier, I've seen soldiers break down in tears. I've seen soldiers pee their pants. I've seen people just go crazy, and all the way down to people wanting to kill themselves because they're afraid they're going to die. Try to make sense out of that, and it was all different people dealing with what was happening to us in different ways. And if that theory is true, then what you were saying is multiplied,
Yeah.
and they say, it does make sense. Especially, I'm not going to say I necessarily buy into the whole theory that it goes all the way back to caveman ancestry, but it is obvious that your parents' trauma, if your dad was an alcoholic, it makes sense why you have a increased risk of becoming an alcoholic, because you're seeing the traumas and dealing with the effects of it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing how you deal with it, all from the same person.
Right.
So it does make sense in some aspect that trauma can carry in your genes.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about things that you have to unravel that you don't even know about. And yeah, it does make it hard to take that mask off. I was listening to you talk, and I got a half brother. We got different moms, same dad, and I was raised by my grandparents. So when I was born, my dad was very young, and he said, "Nope, I can't take care of kids." So he gave me up to my grandparents.
I have one of those too.
He had my half brother 6-7 years down the road. All right. My biological father did not live a great life, not in the aspect of what you would want as a role model. And my brother has turned out extremely different for me. He's homeless quite a bit. drug use, and I do believe that it comes from the trauma that has carried down from my dad to him, and because I didn't have those traumas, I wasn't directly there. However, even though I never lived with my dad, there is relations, our temper, um, things that we do, and I never lived with him, not one day.
Yeah.
You know, so I do believe that trauma and all this type of stuff can travel in your genes, and over time you can change it,
Yeah.
and it starts by removing the mask and dealing with it, and then figuring out how do you stop it. how
Right.
is does that trauma stop at my point, so I don't pass it on to my kids, their kids, and so forth.
Right.
you know that is a complex Rubik's cube right there.
I think it is definitely. And I honestly think too, that's where the light comes in. That's where, honestly, that's where God comes in. That's where, everyone, when you come at a point where, okay, for you, for instance, you came to a point in your life where you said, I got to make some changes, right? I got to heal. I got to move forward in my life. I got to be there for my wife and my kids and my family, my work, whatever, right?
Yep.
Something inside you called you to do that, called you to finally start peeling back that mask, right? And to start
Yep.
letting people in your life. Some sort of light had to have reached you to open your eyes to say, hey, let's go ahead and take this mask off. Let's go ahead and find new ways to live our life. Let's find new ways to find peace and happiness within inside myself. Like what was it for you? What called you to finally start to peel back your mask and truly change your life?
um I'm going to tell you, for me, so the initial help came from a moment of crisis.
Mhm.
Me and my son almost got into a physical altercation. Had it not been for my wife, we would have.
Mhm.
Um, it was not instigated, but I was dealing with things that I didn't understand. There would be days that I would just wake up and there would be something burning inside me that, like, there's something wrong. And as the day went on, it just got worse and worse, and my temper rose with it, and that's what was happening. And she finally was the reason why I went and got help. She pushed me to go do it, and so that's where my eyes got opened up. But that's not necessarily where the mask came off at. Um, since I have been here in Missouri, and for those that don't know and are watching, my family's still in Georgia, and no, we're not separated. It's just we're physically separated, not emotionally. And um, I've had time to not have to deal with everything else that goes around. I've had time to now look at me,
Mhm.
and that's where I just decided it's got to change. I'm not happy. You know, there's things that bother me still to this day. And I don't know if it's, the first therapist I seen said it's TBI, but I don't honestly know what it is. But my memory is not great. Um, I have a hard time remembering what my kids look like when they were kids. You know, and I can't tell you what shows they watched as a kid. I can't tell you their favorite toys. My wife talks about that stuff, and I just kind of nod. But the truth is, I don't remember it. You know, when I talk about Afghanistan and Iraq, sometimes I'm telling stories And I'm thinking it happened in Iraq, but it might have happened in Afghanistan. I can't remember the years, and that some things happened. And that type of stuff bothers me. And that's what kind of pushed me to starting that book that I still haven't finished, but it was my way of saying, I need to get this out so that I can, one, remember in case, maybe this is early dementia or something. I don't know. And um, so I started that. And that also helped me start evaluating myself, because now I'm thinking about things and putting it on paper. And then when you go back and reread it to edit, you're like, that was a weird ass dude, you know? But it makes you think, because now it's not me on that paper. I'm evaluating what I'm reading.
Mhm.
But the truth is it was me.
You're
And so,
seeing the differences between the growth,
yeah,
right? The growth between where you started and where you're moving to.
So, that's one thing I do tell people, if you're having a hard time taking that mask off, then take it off when you're by yourself. Sit down and put things on paper. Keep a journal. You don't have to write a book. It don't have to be something that you ever share or publish, but put on paper, go back and reread it, and then you can start evaluating yourself.
Absolutely.
Don't pick that book up when you're having a bad day, when you're thinking clearly, because we all know with our situation, there's some good days and there's some bad days. One may outweigh the other one, but on those good days, sit back and read what you wrote. Write those books when you're having your bad days. That's when you should be writing, because that's when the emotions are coming out of you.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that process, I don't care who you are, when you're doing that and you're putting it on paper, that mask has came off.
Mm-hmm.
There might not be anybody else around to see it, but the mask is off.
That's right. And it's the healing process of starting to, like we talked about last week, like you were saying, when you're starting to own up to the things that you went through, or the things that happened, or the things that you did, or the things you didn't do, you're starting to write that down and go, okay, this happened, and I can't take it back. I can't do it over. I can't change it. But this happened, and I'm writing it down, and I'm starting to process now, you know, that this did happen, and
Yeah.
that now, I don't have to keep it up here anymore. I can write it out, and I can it's kind of like going to the bank, right? Like you go in, and what do you do when you go to the bank? Sometimes you do a deposit. You're going in there and you're depositing in so much money into the account, right? So you're
Yep.
taking those thoughts out of you, and you're making a deposit onto the paper, and you're saying, okay, I'm giving this to you, and I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to remove it from, me. I'm going to remove it from my wallet, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then there's other times when you go to the bank and you do a withdrawal, right? Where you take that money back out and you put it back in your wallet. So you're now, investing, right? You're investing in yourself. And those are the moments when you think about when you're in your room and you're taking off that mask and you're writing things down on paper. You're not only making a deposit, you're also making an investment, because
Yep.
you're making room inside your heart and your soul to be able to start to heal and give it a little bit more room to breathe and open up that jail cell just a little bit. And that's an incredible thing. And it's very hard to do. But when you take that first step, and that's, a lot of times on the videos that I do and stuff, like people say, well, I can't heal. I'm never going to take this mask off. I'm hurting. I'm struggling. I don't know how to take the first step. And one thing I always say is that when someone says to me, I don't know how to take the first step, you're literally taking the first step, telling me that you don't know how to take the first step. because you're admitting to yourself that there's a problem. You're admitting to yourself that something somewhere needs to be addressed. And that is the first step to moving forward. And then from there, you take the second step. You know, like you said, you write it down, or you talk to the dog, or you talk to someone you feel safe with. It doesn't have to be a family member. It doesn't have to be, you know, a coworker. It could be, who knows, maybe you meet someone at the bar and start just telling them what's going on. Who knows? If it's someone you feel comfortable and safe with, that's exactly how you start doing it. So I love that you talk about doing that and writing everything down, because it is so important, and it's very healing. It's very healing to start doing that.
And I mean, I know this is going to sound funny, but you know, the reason why I brought that up in the last show about talking to the dog, why that was the example, because that's what I do every night when I go to bed.
Good listeners.
Yeah. You know, my dog literally comes up and lays down next to me, and I just lay there and talk to her and pet her, and she just lays there kind of looking at me like, yeah, I really like this. And then as I turn the light off, she gets up and goes, wow, he's fucked up.
But she loves you through it, and she don't talk back. So
as long as I don't stop petting her, she's good. She'll listen all day long.
Exactly. She'll be there all, and she ain't looking at her watch, and she's not like, okay, we got to wait for the next contestant here.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. But
unconditional love.
It's just about getting it out and being able to evaluate it, right? So when I talk about taking ownership, you can't take ownership of something until you have figured out what it is that you've got to take ownership on.
Yes.
You know, again, things that I tell people all the time, you know, when I got past the thought of getting rid of myself, and I still hadn't addressed what was putting me there, the anger is what came next. And you couldn't tell me that I was fucked up at that point. It was everybody else is, you know, and all that was me deflecting. I mean, I almost got into fist fights because a truck driver was taking too long at the pump. I am not, I say that, I am not joking. I walked up to that dude's truck and about pulled him out of his truck. All because he'd sat there for 20 damn minutes. And I was going up and I needed to go. And I had the stress of my business, and I wasn't in the right mind. I should have never owned a business, you know, and I still think about that dude's face, you know, but that's where I had put myself, you know, and choices that I made. And again, I'm a firm believer that, you know, there's bottom and then there's veteran bottom. You know, when you see a veteran and you say, wow, have you finally hit rock bottom? Are you done? And then they look at you and say, hold my beer, I can keep digging. And they just keep digging deeper and deeper until they're finally just too tired to keep digging. And that's, I think that's where I got to. You know, I got tired of being tired. I got tired of not being able to laugh. I got tired of not being able to enjoy life. You know, I'm still not there. There's still things, you know, just recently, you know, I about had a full ass meltdown at PetSmart this weekend. So, I mean, I'm not there, you know. I've had some rough couple weeks, and stress has been on me, but I'm in a better mind now than I was 6 years ago.
And you're talking about it, you know, you're letting it out. And that's, you know, to even own up and admit that, hey, I almost had a breakdown this weekend. You know, I was struggling and going through some shit, and I almost lost it all. You know, right there, you're owning the fact that there's still some things that need to be worked on. And we all go through, you know, life isn't perfect. Just in general, we all go through moments where we want to scream our head off, and we want to hit the pillow. We want to maybe punch a wall, whatever it might be, you know. Like for me, it'd probably be like screaming or hitting a pillow, but maybe you want to punch a wall, but like we all have those moments where shit just gets to the top, right? And if you don't let the air out, you don't take the lid off, it's going to blow, and it's going to, like we were saying last week, it's going to burn you, and it's going to burn those around you. And that's, to be able to say, hey, I almost had a meltdown this weekend because I got some stuff that I'm still not okay with and I'm still working through. That's healing right there. You're moving forward and you're taking initiative to realizing that, okay, I still do have some things I have to work on. And I think we'll always have things to work on. I don't think it's ever going to disappear fully,
And I think that's the misconception. People think that taking the mask off means you're back to yourself. Okay.
Right.
And I believe, I don't know, maybe it was another podcast or we talked about it on the last show, but you have to be able to embrace the new you and stop looking for the old you.
Yes.
You have gone through things that have changed you.
Yes.
And just because it's a new you doesn't mean you have to feel like shit about yourself.
Exactly.
There's things to love about the new you.
Yes.
And that's what taking the mask off is.
Absolutely.
It's recognizing that I've got things to work on.
Mm-hmm.
It's recognizing when you're getting into that point. I mean, to this day, there's still times at work when I'm having a really bad day and I want to eliminate the risk of me saying something to the wrong person that's going to get me fired. I shut my office door. And that's just
sorry.
Yep. And that's me recognizing how I'm feeling that day and doing things to better mitigate those problems.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Because the way I used to deal with these problems is not the best way. And that's what taking the mask off is recognizing when you start having these feelings and the anger and catching that boiling point so you can take the lid off and stir it a little bit so it simmers back down.
Right.
Versus just letting it keep going until the explosion happens.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what taking the mask off is.
I agree 1,000%. And I have a question for you. Okay. So you were talking about how when you owned a business and there was a guy at the gas station that, you wanted to punch his lights out because of the fact that he was taking so long. Was that a moment, because that's a pivotal moment for you that you're never going to forget, right? That's something that you realized in your head, I got to do something about this, right? Like something in that moment with that man and that situation, that scenario clicked something in you that said, I've got to change something in my life, right? Was that a pivotal moment for you that actually?
So there's two parts to that. There's still things that I have done that I have not forgiven myself for. And there's things that I did that I now recognize later that is not good. I'll put it that way, right? That is one of those that I recognize now that I have mellowed out and have gotten some help that that guy has issues. So if I seen that guy walking down the street now, I'd be like, that dude's fucked up, But at the time, no. Yeah. At the time, I did not. Even getting back in the truck as I was leaving, and he pulled away so I could pull out, I was still cussing at him. I didn't recognize that there was anything wrong. That was the stage that I'm not messed up. Everybody else is messed up.
Right.
And so, now that I've been writing that book, it's things like that has that I think back to, and it's like, wow, why didn't I catch that sooner?
And that's the reason I asked that is because God puts people in our lives for a reason, always. a reason, a season, or a blessing. You know, sometimes they're there to teach us lessons. Sometimes they're there to open our eyes. Sometimes they're there to be an angel right when you need it. And you'll remember that man for the rest of your life for that reason,
Yeah.
because he was put there for a reason. He was put there to wake you up, to do something in your life in that moment. And, you know, I think about that sometimes because I've had times in my life where I've just gone through some really, really, really shitty times, you
Yeah.
know, and I'll have somebody come to me out of the blue and just say something just that just makes me do a double take and look again and think, my gosh, you know, right in that moment, I needed to hear those words. You know, God always has a way of opening our eyes. And even when we don't see it right in that moment, we might not see it for a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, you know, but now that you're looking back on it, you're like, that was a pivotal moment in my life. That was an impactful moment in my life, that something there, you know, he was there for a reason. And even though you're not proud of the way you handled it, you didn't pummel him. So yay for that, you know, but like you, you'll never forget that face or that person, because he was put there to teach you a lesson. He was put there to open your eyes and to wake you up, you know, and those kind of things are so neat. And I think so many people have these experiences in their life, especially with people that are dealing with, you know, hiding behind the mask and hiding behind closed doors, so to speak. There's people that come into your life, and it may be in the moment that you're angry and you want to blow up, you know, and you don't. Or it may be in a situation where, you know, you're in a really, really dark place and you're at the point where you're ready to take your last breath. And then one person comes into your life, you see a video on TikTok or on social media, or someone comes into the, you know, where you're at and holds the door open for you. And maybe you haven't had kindness in 10 years, or, you know, whatever it might be. And it gave you that little bit of hope to keep going, that little bit of hope that there's still love in this world. There's still hope in this world. And, you know, that is another thing that everybody out there that wears a mask, that suffers silently, people come into your life for a reason. You know, whether they're there to be a video for you, to be a motivation, to do something kind for you, whatever it might be, pay attention to the people around you, because I'm telling you, and I'll stop after this, God puts angels in our lives for the right reasons at the right time at the right moment. So don't ever lose hope, and know that no matter what you're going through, you can get through it. You can start to heal. You can take off that mask. And, you know, it's people like Donald here and Two Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room and Gun Room Radio, and, you know, all these incredible people that are sitting here saying, we're right here with you, you know, and we're going to lift you up. We're going to be your shoulder, and we're going to be your ear, and we're going to be here in that moment to help you start to peel back your mask. Now, it's your choice if you want us to rip it off, or you want to take it off slowly, or you don't want us to touch it at all. You just want us to lead you to the water. But we're here to help you do that.
You know, and the other thing that people don't realize is that mask doesn't only hide you from us, but it can hide those lessons that you talked about from you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're not looking and you're not paying attention, you know, a lesson that could change things. And I don't know, you know, I'm not going to say 100%, but that could be what happens when veterans get to the point where they finally take their own life, is that mask has hid all the avenues to offer help. And the only avenue that they seen was that one, you know? So you have to, I'm not going to say you have to take that mask off, but it starts with, and we said this in the last show too, it starts with loving yourself.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to take the mask off and talk about it with everybody else, but you need to sit down and start talking to yourself about it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what are people going to think, you're weird or you're crazy because you're talking to yourself? Well, I mean, let's be realistic. What is it that we're talking about right now? You know,
Yeah,
what else you got to lose? You know,
that's right.
you're by yourself. You're and you just talk about whatever you want to talk about. I don't. When I say put things on paper, I don't mean write out on June 28th, 2005. I had several friends get killed. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how are you feeling today? Put that on. Let's start there. Put that on paper. And then ask yourself, when you can think about it, why do you feel that way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then that will pull one string out until the knots are finally getting untied. And then when you feel more comfortable, then you can talk about what happened on June 28th, 2005.
Yeah.
You know, and I have just got to that point where I talk about that, you know. And so I think there's a misconception that people think that you have to talk about the trauma when the reality is you didn't go straight from the trauma to where you're at now.
Right.
There's a path that you're going to have to walk back down to get on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
So you shouldn't expect it to go straight from where you're at to the trauma.
Right.
You know, take that moment to figure out where you're at today so that you can live tomorrow and work on the next problem.
Absolutely. And maybe just every day, write something down every day. Every day, whether it's, your quiet time at night or first thing in the morning, wherever you have a few moments to just be with yourself
Yeah.
and write down how you're feeling in that moment. And you'll be surprised how all of a sudden you may write, I'm tired today. And the next thing you know, you might write, I'm tired because, you know, there's so much magic in being able out your feelings, being able to express your feelings and let your pen and your hand and your heart do the talking, because you'll be surprised how much more comes out. Where do you think these incredible songs come from?
Yeah.
When you think about it, with Gun Room Radio, these
Yep.
incredible songs come from a moment of sitting by yourself in your room and starting to write your feelings. And the
Yep.
next thing you know, you might have a song on your hands or a book on your hands or a poem on your hands. And you never know how that moment in your room with that one sentence could change your life, could change someone else's life, could make a difference bigger than you know, and maybe your purpose, maybe the reason that you're here in the first place, by one sentence, one beginning.
Yeah. I completely agree. And you know, again, we've said it in the past, that moment when you realize why you're here, it's going to come as an aha moment. You know,
Yep.
it's not something that, you know, you're just going to find a moment of peace and you're going to say, huh,
Yep.
that's why I was here. And
Yep.
and I believe that's what's happened to me with podcasting and the radio station and everything that we're doing, you know, this podcast as well. And I do it because I love it. I feel like this is what my purpose is for, you know.
Yeah.
And it's helped me. So I hope that it helps others.
Absolutely. It's so neat how when you think you're doing something for one reason, right? Your goal is to get out there, get veterans heard, get their music heard, give them a platform, give them a chance. It's blossomed into such a bigger, more incredible thing that not only are you doing incredible things, you're also healing and you're also getting a chance to work on yourself in these moments and also show other people that, hey, I'm vulnerable. Hey, I'm opening up and I'm telling you exactly what's going on in my life. And, us two, we're not so different. And that's an incredible thing because that impacts so many lives. And not only are you healing yourself, but you're also healing other people and
I,
you're making a difference in so many people's lives. So don't ever for one moment think that you're not on the right path, because I promise you, you are. Promise you.
yeah, I absolutely agree. You know, I am convinced of that. And that aha moment came from me when on the way to recording a video for, an artist. So, I mean,
That's awesome.
it's weird when that moment comes, but it will come. And
Yeah. Yes,
you
it
got to
will.
take that mask off to see it,
That it will. It will. That's very true.
So,
I have a little quick story. Do we
okay.
have a second?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll let your story take us to the end.
So this is called the elephant rope. And I love this little motivational story. I didn't write it. It's written by I don't know, Than Min, it looks like. I think that's who it is. But it's a quick little story here, just about a little motivation about how when you're conditioned to do something for so long, you get stuck in that, right?
Yeah.
Just like as a child, you're conditioned one way and you're going to grow up and you're going to continue to take that throughout your life until something or someone or you comes into your life and says, it's time to put a stop to it and change it. And that this isn't how it has to be. So it's called the elephant rope. I'm going to try to see this with my eyes because I don't have my radars. My old eyes. So if I blink a lot, don't laugh. Okay. As a man was passing the elephants, he suddenly stopped, confused by the fact that these huge creatures, I can make it bigger, were being held by only one small rope tied to their front leg. No chain, no cages. It was obvious that the elephants could anytime break away from their bonds, but for some reason they did not. He saw a trainer nearby and he asked why these animals just stood there and made no attempt to get away. Well, the trainer said, when they were very young and much smaller, we used the same size rope to tie them off, and at that age, it's enough to hold them. As they grow up, they are conditioned to believe they cannot break away. They believe the rope can still hold them, so they never try to break free. The man was amazed. These animals could at any time break free from their bonds, but because they believed they couldn't, they were stuck right where they were. Like elephants, how many of us go through life hanging on to a belief that we cannot do something simply because we failed at it once before?
That is so true.
Isn't that, I just thought it was a cute little story there. And it's so true. Just because you've lived one way and you grew up one way doesn't mean you have to stay that way. It doesn't mean you have to stay stuck in that pattern with that mask on, living that life that you've lived for so long. You can always take it off, take that rope off and run.
Yep. I absolutely agree. And it's true too. I mean, when you start thinking back to your life, you're like, how many times did, I've said it several times, man, I wish I could have that time back. Cause that's 10 minutes of my life. I say it in a lot of meetings. That's 10 minutes of my life I will never get back. But absolutely, and you think about all the years that elephant could have got back if he just realized and moved on.
Yeah, that's right.
And y'all, we're not calling you elephants, but we're just saying, if the shoe fits, then, you got to wear it. So don't be an elephant. Okay. And let's start working one step at a time to start taking that mask off so you can live your life.
Absolutely.
Because you don't have to be dead while you're still alive, no matter
Amen.
what.
Absolutely.
You're here. You're loved. You're amazing. We love you. And we want to help you find yourself and move forward in your life.
With that being said, I hope y'all enjoy the show, and I hope y'all take care, and I hope you come back to join us every Tuesday as we talk about more and more motivational stuff.
Yes, and hopefully I won't look as pale as a snail next week. I look really pale. I look like I'm a ghost over here.
Next time I'll have our little banner and everything fixed.
Oh yeah.
Recently changed. I hadn't had time to get everything uploaded, but I'll
That's all right.
change,
It looks cool.
I'll change it from Gunz and Rosez to Gunz and Casper.
It might have to be. I look a little pale these days.
All right. Well, y'all take care. Be safe. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye, guys. We love you.